Hey everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's soap making video where we're going to go and make midnight magic. Now I have made a version of this soap a couple of times in the past and it's always been super popular, and I quite often get requests to see if I will ever create this soap again. And because I'm having a bit of a revival thing with my soap dough box, I decided now was the perfect chance to make a soap that's got the moon embed in it and some little mushrooms on the top. So we're going to go and make midnight magic, and first up I'm going to make the little mushrooms, then the moon, before we move on to making this soap afterwards. Let's go. All right, so as you can see, I have been busy making the embeds and I still have one of each size to make. So I'm going to show you how I've been making these little mushrooms. I am using some red soap dough and some white soap dough here. I'm going to start off with the white so I don't contaminate it after touching the red, and I then don't have to wash my hands that often. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break off a piece for the stalk on each of these. Now for the smaller mushroom, I'm using a piece that is about 0.5 of a gram, so that piece is perfect there. And for the larger mushroom, I am using a piece that is 1.5 grams, so that's just a little bit too much, and that should be right. Perfect. So I've got the two stalks. Now I do still need some white in a bit, but we'll just pop it to the side for now and we'll come and grab the red soap dough. For the small mushroom, I need a piece which is about 2 grams in weight, so I need a bit more on there, and I like to weigh them so I can make sure that my soaps are relatively the same weight at the end. For my larger one, I'm going to do 3.5. How's that? That is perfect. Must have just known the right amount there. So now we don't need those scales. I'm going to start with the red, seeing as I've now got red stains on my hand, and I'm going to roll this into a ball. And I'm just going to kind of squish it down a little bit as well, making sure that I don't make it too wide so it stays within my 2.5 centimetre cut lines. I'm going to do the same with the small piece. I'm just going to roll it into a ball, and then I'm just going to squish it down just a little bit just to make those mushroom caps. And now, so I don't contaminate that white, I'm just going to go and wash my hands. So now we're going to come to the white pieces, and I'm just going to again roll it into a ball because this gives you a really nice smooth working surface. And then I'm going to kind of roll it into a little bit of a teardrop shape, and I'm just going to squish it down just a little bit there. And I'm going to do exactly the same with the smaller piece into a ball, and then I just push the one end to make that little bit of a teardrop shape like so. Now I've got this little tool here that's got a ball on the end, and I'm just going to pop a little hole into the bottom here, and then I'm going to pop the stalk onto the bottom of my mushroom. Now my soap dough is actually quite fresh. I only made it the other day, so it does still have a really nice stick to it, so I don't need any water to help hold the soap together. But if you do find that your soap dough is not sticking, just add a little bit of water and that will help it to stick. And then to finish them off, I'm just going to grab a little bit more of the white soap dough. I'm going to start rolling it out into a very, very thin sausage because this helps with the next bit. And just to make it easier to work quickly, I'm just going to start breaking off very, very small pieces, rolling them into a ball, and just going to pop a whole heap of them onto the side here. Now as I'm rolling these balls, I am doing them all at different sizes. We've got some really small ones here, we've got some slightly larger ones as well, and I just want to get a fair few on the bench. I think I probably need about a dozen from experience with all those other ones. Sometimes it can be difficult to roll the little ones. They kind of like want to just smear over your fingers, but if you just keep persisting with it, they do eventually roll into the little balls here. So Get that piece there. We'll see how we're going with these little bits. Let's just do one more. All right, pop the rest of that over there. All right, so then with these little balls, all I'm gonna do is just stick them randomly using all the different sort of sizes here. Let's see if we can pick them up and just stick them onto the mushroom here, squishing them down so that they look like they're actually a part of the red design and that they're not actually sticking up too much. And I am being very random with it. Just, I don't want to put too many dots. It's kind of like going to be this fine line of too many and not enough. But I think we're looking pretty good. We need another one in there that's a little bit smaller. And I think we're missing one around here. All right, so that is our larger mushroom. So I'll pop that one on there. And I haven't got enough of these. So let's pop these ones on and then I'll see how many more of these little dots I'm going to need to be able to fill up this little mushroom here. Probably another, I want to say 3, so that we've got an odd number on here. Odd numbers always look better than evens. So I'll just grab my piece of white again. And I like to roll it into that thin sausage because it just makes it easier to break those little pieces off. Roll them into the balls. One more. And let's stick these onto our little mushroom here. And it's nice having it in that little ball because when you push it on and squish it down, it keeps that sort of round shape on it. Pop one more in there and I'm pretty happy with how that one is looking. So now that I have got all of my mushrooms done up, we are going to go and make a moon to go inside of this soap. I have everything I need to make my moon embed. I'm going to give you a quick rundown because I want to get my shop door back open. The street's really busy and it's a beautiful day out there. I have my oils and my lye water all to room temperature. We're going to do it a base color of white and then do a drop swirl of a dark gray, and this is some Nimbus. For my fragrance, I'll be using white patchouli, and I know this looks quite dark, especially if I'm going to be doing a white moon, but I already use this fragrance within my range and do it as a white soap, and it's never discolored on me. So hopefully it behaves on this one. I've also got a piece of PVC pipe. This is as long as my mold is, or it's probably just a little bit shorter, just to make it easier to pop into the mold. And it's a 2-inch wide pipe and I've lined it with a little bit of greaseproof paper. We've got an end cap and I've also got a little bit of biodegradable film over the end there. Just stops the soap from sticking to the end cap so we can get it off afterwards. So I'm going to start making this up like I do every other soap, and then once it's done we'll be leaving this to one side to set up for the 24 hours, and then we'll be able to do the main soap. Our moon embed is now ready to unmold. I've just knocked the end off with the hammer, and now I'm just going to slide. That was nice and easy. Sometimes these are really difficult, but I've just slid that out, and now we're going to take our paper off our embed. Oh, and it's looking good. Let's just quickly grab a mold, and I want to make sure it should fit, but these are new molds. It does fit. I probably need to get some new PVC molds because these molds are actually just slightly longer than the blue ones that I was using, but that's okay. It just means that our ends, I'll have to be really careful how I put it in so that when I cut my ends off, the main soap still has all our little moon embeds. And then I will have to have a look at maybe getting some new PVC pipes. Okay, so let's move on to making the soap. I have less oil in my bucket than what I usually do and less lye water because I've already used part of my oils in that Moon in bed, and we don't want to overfill the mold, and I also don't want so much leftover soap that I end up with random bars. So I've worked out my mold held, I think it was about 600 grams, 620 grams worth of oil. And so I've taken that off of my batch here to give me the right amount. Let's get this mixed in. All right, so I've given that just a few little light pulses and a stir. And what we're gonna do is grab our colors to go in this one. Now for the top, I'm going to put some green to sit our mushrooms. So I need a fair amount in that jug to pour across the top of it. And then you might I'll pour in just a wee bit more in there. I know it never looks like much when I pour a bit more in, but that little bit can sometimes make all the difference. Into these two pots. So that first pot with the green, that's got some green sage micro. I wanted that sort of darker, you know, forest sort of green that's got that little bit of mystery to it. In this one, I have just poured off a little bit of, no, it's not cerulean, Blue Haven. It's a little pot of micro I forgot I had there, and it just fell off the shelf today. So I actually thought, right, we'll put it in here. And I'm also going to do just a little bit of silver as well, which we're going to drop swirl through our main color, which is going to be some Egyptian blue. So I'm going to go for a bit of a navy sort of blue color. We'll put a bit more in there because the blues just never seem to really pop in soap. Normally I'd put a little bit of corn flour in here as well, but I have just done another soap that has got that combination. So I'm going to try and keep it a little bit different today. I'm going to mix my colors in. All right, so just gonna give that a bit more of a mix to make sure we've got all that mica up off the bottom. While I'm doing it, I may as well pop my fragrance in. I know it's a well-behaving fragrance. We'll pop it into those, into that one. I'll save some for the green, like so. So we'll give those a good mix. And then what I'm gonna do is pour the blue and the silver into my darker blue here, and then pour it into the mold. And when it's firm enough, because this is actually quite runny, we will then add in our Moon embed. I'm going to leave the fragrance out of the green for now because I know that this fragrance does thin this out, and that means that if we just leave that to the side, if it does set up a little bit, by the time this bit's ready, that fragrance will help to loosen that green up and get it into a pourable state. When I make my Moon soaps, I haven't done one for so long, I would actually pour half my blue, put my Moon bed in, and then put the other half, or it could have been a black soap. I do all sorts of different colors. But I decided for this one to just start pouring it all in because that lighter blue had gone very, very chunky monkey on me. Like it's gone disgusting. So I thought, well, if I leave that to set anymore, it might not move, it might not look nice. So let's get it in while we can. It's almost like you can't, it's really weird. Let me grab a piece. You can almost see how it's gone chunky monkey in that blue. So I just thought, you know what, let's pour it all in. I can then push my soap in here, but it does mean that I end up with the same sort of pour across the whole soap as well. Sometimes when you've got different thicknesses in your soap when you pour them, so you pour the beginning and it's nice and fluid, but by the time you pour the top and it's thickened up, you get different swirl patterns. And I wanted this to look relatively the same the whole way through. It makes sense in my head, and if you're a soaper, you'll probably also understand what I'm saying there. But I'm just going to give that a bit of a wibble wobble. That's all nicely covered up. Let's work on our green. I just have to clean my stick blender. I've got the stick blender all dried off. I'm going to add the rest of that fragrance in there. I am going to give that one just a very quick stick blend. Normally I would pipe leaves when I want to do like a grassy top, but like I said, I did my bunny hop soap, and I explained in there that I've kind of just moved away from that because the amount of time that it does take to do that leaf piping to get that grass effect. So instead what I'm doing is I'm just going to pour a layer of green on here, and then we will texture it afterwards. This also means like quite often you see me pipe and I always have way too much piping left at the end, and it's too much to put it into the soap, and I end up having to make, it's not a bad thing, I can make like little hearts soaps to give away and things like that, or they appear in some of the confetti soap bags, but it still means that I've got soap that hasn't gone into the mold, which then makes the soaps very, very light on weight, still legally labeled correctly on my soaps, but I don't like that they can be a good 5 grams less than what I like them to be. But there we go, doing it this way, I know I've got all that soap in there, no waste, and all my bars are going to be correct. So I'm just going to let that set up for a minute, and then we'll come and we'll texture the top to make it look a little bit like some grass. So to do the top, I'm going to try and use my whisk here. I just want some little peaks, but I think my whisk might be too big. I see other people using whisks to do some tops on their soaps. I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. I just kind of want some little peaky bits to make it look like grass is sticking up. When I did my little bunny hops, I actually used a fork, and I like the how it came up, but I'm actually really liking the design for this one, how this is looking. It could be something I just do on my soaps full stop, whether I want them to look like grass or not. But I might see if I can find myself maybe a slightly smaller whisk for doing this with, but it is coming up quite nice like that. I can see that little bit there is a little bit taller than this bit here, so let's see if we can drag some soap down there. Now I'm getting the hang of it. I'm going to come back down this end and just kind of make it look a little bit more natural as opposed to forced. I think that's the way we're going to say it. All right, really, really happy with that. I'm going to go and grab the embeds and we will get the top of this decorated. All right, so we've got our little mushrooms. I've also got a little pot of flowers. To make these, I've used some sprinkle sheets that I've had for a while from off Wickedly Goods. Sadly, she doesn't make them anymore. But basically, I push some soap dough into the holes. I have a flower one. This is the star. It was just easier to grab. And then I push them out once they've firmed up, and we end up with these tiny little flowers. So my sort of idea for this is to pop a mushroom into the soap. We'll put a large and a small mushroom, making sure to keep them between the lines and make sure that they're in enough. And then when I've popped all these in, I will then just sprinkle some of these flowers down the side of this side of the soap just to make it look like a little flower bed. I'll try and get some, there are different colors other than purple and orange in here. We've got some little whites. I'll just try and make sure they're randomly scattered across the top. But my shop is now during opening hours. There's a few people outside. I've had a couple of people already in this morning, so I want to go and get my door back open. So I'm going to put some music on while I finish popping the embeds on here. And once they're all on, I will then bring you down for a closer look. Okay, so Midnight Magic is now in the mold. I did decide to add a little bit of holographic biodegradable glitter to the top just to really add to the magic of the whole thing. And I'm really, really happy with how it is looking so far. So we're going to leave it sit overnight and we'll come back in just a moment and we'll see what the inside looks like. We'll see how chunky it is. Okay, we are ready to cut into Midnight Magic and I'm really looking forward to cutting into this one. It has been so long since I have done a moon in bed soap and I don't know, there's just something about this particular design. I know I've done it a few times in the past, but there's just something about it that everyone seems to love. Now I'm just making sure I have missed them all. I think I can afford to just nudge that down a little bit because that one is awfully close and now that one's a little bit close. All right, let's just go for it and hopefully Ida plays nice. Oh, she is playing nice. Some of the little flowers have cut, which was what I was expecting, but I really wanted to avoid cutting those mushrooms. All right, let's see if these end pieces actually have a little moon slither in them. All right, I'll get rid of this piece. And here is, oh, look at that. And yes, on the other side, there is a bit of moon there as well. So I'm suspecting this very last one might not have as big a moon in it, but we'll have a look at that in just a bit. I'm really, really pleased with this, especially the color, and that moon, it's just come up so beautiful. But the color is one of those, I really, really like it. I struggle with blues in my soap. I really, really do. It's not a color that I can actually get to hold well. I don't know if it's due to the amount of olive oil that goes into mine, but I'm really, really pleased with that blue. The brighter blue, it did go a bit chunky in the soap, but we have got a little bit of movement in there as well. And I like the little wisps of silver swirl through the blue too. And those tops, look at those with their little mushrooms and flowers, really, really happy. I also like the look that the grass has got on the top of here. I probably will use that technique more often of using the whisk to try and just pull it up rather than piping leaves on the top to make it look like grass there. But super happy, and it's smelling really good as well. I know that fragrance oil always looks so dark when I pour it out the bottle, but I've never had a problem in my white patchouli soap with it going the wrong color. And I make my white patchouli soap on a white base and it stays white. So though having said that, it could do anything in this bar of soap, couldn't it? But I'm super, super happy with how these ones have turned out. Love the little moon. I should make more moon soaps. I always enjoy making them. We're gonna get to the sort of end here and we'll see if I was also able to get a moon in that right up to the very end of this last piece. You never actually see me cutting this last piece because it does require a little bit of balancing to get it to sit on those two wire lines and not move while I'm cutting it, and then I end up with a wonky bar. But let's see. Oh no, it just needed a tiny little bit more to come off. Maybe we've got a bit of an eclipse in that bar, but I am super, super happy. You know what I probably can do with this bar, once it firms up a little bit in a few days' time, I actually might just plane the back of that soap. It's literally not even half a mil of soap covering that bit of moon. So I think if I get my planer and just put one swipe across the bottom, we'll get that nice moon in there. But there it is. That is my Midnight Magic soap. I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me as I made it. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any comments down below. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you then. Bye.